Is it this? Okay, thank you for that. Let me put this in here. There we go. How your, if you will, oops, I had that right there. I should have done that there. We talk about the consequences of belief. In other words, if what you believe is true, what are the consequences of that? And we'll have a discussion here on why your beliefs matter. And we'll talk about that here. Let me put the lights back on here. So I'm not letting the dark. No. So we'll not keep the lights off. We will not go to sleep. So we'll talk about the consequences of belief. So that was dealing with the topic of race and racism in the United States. And it was dealing with the question, that particular story of Gettysburg, the Civil War. And in that context there, that was desegregation from the movie Remember the Titans. And so let me ask you this then. What do you think causes racism? It's kind of a weird question, but what do you think causes racism? People, okay, yeah, okay, that's pretty good. What would you say, Elise?
Depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Like racism is just like, it's not a race, of course. Like that would just be silly. But racism is just like,
it's a prejudice, right?
It's more likely just saying rude stuff to actually make yourself feel better, kind of like bullying.
Okay, yeah, there's a modern day context of that for sure, where there's a lot of divisiveness there. What do you think, Gabby? Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, yes, like that was like the classic definition. It was superiority of one better than another. So, guys, so Mike, do you have one? Okay. So basically, the idea of the history of racism in America, it's a very long history that you can go into. Aaron, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask for there. Yeah, here's a pen. Why don't you hand some of these out to those that might need it?
No, hand pencils out.
Here we go. And some of them do. But let me think about this right here, right? Do you think if everybody had the exact same like pigmentation of skin, do you think that some people would still find a way to basically be prejudiced against somebody else? Probably. But yeah, you're right. I think there's certainly a sinful problem. The issue of racism has definitely a sinful core to it. There's just no doubt about it. And here's the other thing too. A lot of Christians and non-Christians alike believe that racism is wrong, and especially in modern day context. Most people, I'm guessing, if you were to survey somebody, yes or no, do you think racism is wrong? Most people in America would probably say yes, it's wrong. I'm just guessing that. I've never seen data on it, but I'm assuming that's probably the case. Yeah. The idea is that, well, we are all human. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though. Do your beliefs actually lead to that as a consequence that racism is wrong? We're going to talk about this. Is it from your worldview? So here's a little thought study. Here's an example of how this sort of works, right? So let's say that you hear on the news that it has been confirmed that a computer hacker has just gotten access to your bank account. Like everybody's bank account at we won't say anybody, but SunTrust. No, I'm sorry. Let's which one? First Citizens Bank. Yes, let's say First Citizens Bank, because I don't bank there. So let's say that you just got information that a hacker has access to everyone's account in there and is able to take your money out of your account. Knowing that information, what would be a logical decision for you to do? Yeah, and probably get the money out, right? So that would be a logical thing. Your behavior would be consistent with your belief, in other words. So there's also that. I know there's these federally insured things as well that you could go into. But for the most part, the idea is that you would not like that happening And therefore, when something that is wrong happening to you, you would have a certain behavior, right? You would react in a certain way. So we're going to talk about the consequences of your belief, and it is, again, it's based off of worldview. So it's the view of the world, the framework used to interpret the world, which determines your beliefs, your values, and your actions. So if you believe that that was true, that report was saying about your bank account, your actions are going to be, I am going to take my money out because you value your money. And so that's how you get the good stuff there. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. This is what a Christian believes about humanity. And sadly, there is a long tradition in America and other countries as well of Christians who were racist. That is just a thing that happened. Unfortunately, I can give you documentation like right now of sources that I had to read through graduate school that we saw this. You have people that are preachers making cases why the Bible is good with slavery. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's part of American history. Unfortunately, that's the case, but it is the case.
That's not taught in schools, and no one doesn't even talk about it. It's like forgotten history.
Well,
I haven't even heard
yeah.
of it.
So here's the thing. So when it comes to a biblical view of humanity, is that you should have this understanding of the image of God, which is this, that all people are made like God by the way of relationship, reason, and responsibility. That if you were to look at somebody who is as if they were inferior to you, they were lower than you, then that is therefore wrong because of your being made in the image of God. So that is a worldview issue. That's not just an assumption. That is a worldview that you have to adopt. So we've done different questions. Is that the whole story, right? Looking at foundations, having questions about the other side in creation and evolution, about what kind of evidence supports your own view versus evolutionary view. And then what happens if you're right? This is what we're talking about today. This is a really interesting question. It's not asking somebody, what happens if you're wrong? That's another side of the story. What happens if you're wrong? Yeah. What happens if you're wrong? But what happens if you're right? And it's asking somebody, do your actions actually coexist with what you believe? Because if you, for example, believe that all people should be treated equally, why is it then, where does that value come from in your worldview? Does your worldview actually believe that everybody is created equally and should be treated equally? Because if not, then you're really kind of doing like a mix and match of what you believe versus how you behave. So we're going to talk about that here. First, Scripture is abundantly clear from Genesis 1 that we are created in God's image. So man is created in God's image. This is a really tough topic, honestly. You hear this a lot, and this is a good reaction when somebody treats anybody unjustly. For example, when in like Afghanistan, for example, when 13 soldiers are killed, that's terrible because you are actually attacking the image of God when somebody is killed. When you have that's another question of like war and like a just defense and things like that.
War is dark itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of toughness in that, right? But for the most part, though, murder, the objective murder, the idea of somebody looking at another person with hatred or malice of some way and taking their life because they just hate the other person, that one is objectively, that's an easy one. But why? That's another thing. Why is that the case?
That's like asking a serial killer, why did they kill?
Yeah. Well, but it's asking, it's getting at the issue of worldview. And so, what is your worldview center, and how does that affect your beliefs and your actions? So, so in Genesis 1, we will read some verses here. We'll see what it means and all of that good stuff. Genesis 1. Let's open up that there. My Bible is right here. Genesis 1. I've been reading through Genesis a lot recently. It's been fun. But here's Genesis 1. Let me read 26 and 27. It says this. Once I get there, it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, or the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." You're like, ha ha, middle schooler. No, I'm joking. No, that's not that. Um,
Take all children out.
but anyways, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, he created them. So that's that. And then it gets in chapter 2, verse 7. I didn't think it was that funny. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. This is a really cool thing here because how did God bring everything into existence in Genesis 1 and 2? He spoke everything. But what was the one exception?
Oh, no, the humans.
Yeah, he didn't act. Was that what you were saying, Travis? Yeah, he actually didn't speak Adam into existence. He could have, but this is what's really unique about Adam is that God created Adam out of the dust of the ground. In fact, his name Adam means dirt, basically, and so he's just a dirt man. And so he is. How does that work? Like, I mean, that's just an amazing thing that God formed the dirt. And then he breathed into man the breath of life. He didn't do that with the birds. He didn't do that with the things that creepeth upon the earth. He did that with just Adam. And then he takes Eve from the rib of the man, and he creates, forms and fashions this other human being. He doesn't do that with anything else. So there is a uniqueness with mankind. There is a uniqueness with Adam and Eve. It's an amazing, amazing thing. So like when it comes to your values of a value of who you are created in God's image. What do you think, William?
And that is why men are dumber than women.
Oh, let's not go into that.
Men were created from dirt and women were created from bones.
Well, so I will not get into that. But God created the dirt though. Anyway, so whatever the case, so what does it mean to be in God's image? So we were definitely made to be in relationship with God and others. There's different good opinions about what it means to be made imago Dei, in the image of God. What does that actually mean? I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that the idea of an image is this idea of you get to see that thing, and it should be a reflection of something else. That's at the very least. It's a uniqueness. What do you think, Elena?
I always thought that made in the image of God meant that we got all of his qualities, like being able to love and like logic being a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, the way that the notes have it spelled out here are things like that: relationship with God and others. You have reasoning, and then sometimes put it this way. Yeah. So intellect, emotion, and will. Some people put it that way, which is kind of similar there. And so whatever the case, we were made to be in relationship with God and others, which is a wonderful thing. It's also a beautiful thing. And so just kind of looking at that right here. The ancient cultures back then had a pretty low view of women, honestly. When Moses was writing this, Moses would have written this down years past when Adam and Eve had been there. Most cultures back then towards women were very, very, very inferior. Here, it's saying that they were both man and woman and created in God's image, which is a powerful view of what they call intrinsic equality. The idea that the actual human beings are no lesser or greater value than one another, men and women, or any skin color. And by the way, who knows what Adam and Eve's skin color was? It was probably brownish of some sort. AI Answers in Genesis thinks that they were probably like a medium brown, a blend of medium brown and maybe a darker brown. That's kind of their thought.
Or like a person who got tan on the beach.
Yeah. The real answer is it doesn't really matter in the long scheme of things. But the idea is that if all human beings come from Adam and Eve, who are created in the image of God, that means you and me and everybody else is also created in the image of God. And we'll see that there in a jiffy. So here's the thing. What happens if you're right as a Christian about your belief? Well, then here is your belief. There's a little chart here. Oops, do we have the, okay, we'll just do this here first. First, you can think, reason, and be creative. You're just saying that logic and all that, Elena. human beings are able to use logic. Now, not all human beings are able to use logic as well as one another, but still, you can reason through things. You have rationality that doesn't seem to be found as often in like the animal world. You sometimes see like decisions made, like dolphins, for example, are like really intelligent, but there seems to be like a human reasoning that's unique. Whatever the case, it's part of who we are, is that we are able to reason. But we're also given a responsibility over creation. That's what happens with Adam and Eve. They are to have dominion over. They are literally to rule the earth, which is a powerful thing. And they did well for the time, and then they kind of didn't do too great. So we'll talk about that. But here's the thing: if we hold to the Christian worldview of this, then that affects what we what we believe about ourselves, that we're in the image of God. We just talked about that multiple times, and then we'll see what follows. We'll see what follows here. And that is, we ask, what is actually, what is true. So here's a fun little chart here. If you are you don't have to write this down. All right. Okay. This is not schoolwork. I'm not going to check your grade. I'm not going to talk to your mom and be like, Miss Michelle, Aaron's not doing. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not going to do that. All right. So this is up to you. So the Christian worldview is that God, that we're created in God's image, that we have a purposeful universe. So what happens if what I believe is true? That's what would be true. Now, if you compare that to others, we have very, very, very different set of outcomes. What is valuable or important? So I would say that we, all of us have dignity, that we are created for God's glory. That's the value that we have, which should be an elimination of any kind of racist thought or superior versus inferior thought towards a particular kind of person or whatever the case might be. So that's really what our value should be. And then the final thing, how should you behave then, right? How should you behave towards other people? Well, the outgrowth of what a Christian should be is to love and serve others. I don't see how that fits into the whole like racism paradigm. I don't see how you can be like, so we're all created in God's image. All people are created with dignity for God's glory, and we're supposed to love and serve others. And therefore, I think I'm superior to you. Like, how does that even work? Like, that's disconnected in the Christian worldview, or at least it should be. Now, we also think about, I know we're going kind of fast because we got a little bit of late start, but here is the result of the opposite worldview, is that God is created in man's image. You're like, huh? If you don't believe the Christian worldview, this is basically where you're getting at, is that God then for you is created in your own image, as far as maybe not even God himself as a being, but really what you believe is supreme, what you believe is most important, what you believe kind of like runs the universe. And we all have these things. And so we'll talk about that. As you think about like the overview of evolution, let me just read this paragraph from our notes here. According to Darwinian evolution, God does not exist, at least as it's naturally taught. All right. I know that obviously many Christians do believe in what's called theistic evolution, that God used evolution. I do reject that view, and there are some people that hold that, but in the most like general sense, evolution itself is not requiring God to be the one in charge, basically, is what I'm saying. The universe would have come into existence on its own by accident, which is kind of a big deal, over the course of millions of years through natural selection, mutation, survival of the fittest. These lower forms evolved from simple creatures to more advanced creatures until we get what we are today. Remember last week we had the picture of like the 8-man development thing. Since there is no God in the universe, we are masters of our own fate. We make God in our image, and he ends up looking a lot like us. Now that's a really powerful statement there. When you create God in your image, ultimately God is basically your best version of you. And I see this among some of my friends who have been Christians all their lives, and they come up with theories and beliefs that frankly look a lot like them. And I don't mean like in a skin color thing or like a women man thing. I'm talking about what they personally believe is true and it contradicts scripture. And yet they're like, this is what is actually the most important thing in the world. I strive to do that in a spiritual sense. Well, what is true? So again, we'll go through this here. What is true in the Darwinian perspective, right? So in that little box thing, you got there for beliefs underneath Darwinian evolution worldview. What would be a belief of Darwinian evolution? Well, you could put it this way: chance and meaningless universe, basically. And yes, if you were to listen to guys like Stephen Hawking and Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and some of these other guys who are evolutionary atheistic scientists, then they would go into those kind of things. That they're Stephen Hawking had is it multiple sclerosis? No. He had Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. He basically said that he shouldn't really deserve to live anymore once he becomes no longer useful to humanity. Yeah, so that's basically what he believes. And that's the idea, because he believes you came into being because of chance and just a meaningless universe. You create your own meaning for yourself. And if you're not careful, you will buy into this. You will hear this a lot from Disney songs or Disney movies, modern day songs, and things like that. You will hear this a lot, that you create your own purpose. Really, no, seriously, most people think that. You have your decisions, individual liberty, you create your own purpose and meaning in life. In other words, you basically create God in your image. And that's really what comes from a basis, an evolutionary framework. What is valuable or important? Well, frankly, survival. It's called survival of the fittest for a reason. Now, that's a thing that actually naturally occurs, that things that are able to endure more typically do endure more. But whatever the case, you have personal fulfillment as like another goal there for values. Again, this is all about you. It's a very selfish goal, because frankly, if you're created by chance in a meaningless universe, why would you be all about other people? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just asking the question, right? What if what you believe is true? The third thing is, how then should you behave? Now, the realistic thing is, you could exploit others. You could act in your best interest. Now, here's the thing. I know that most of you, if an evolutionary person were to be here, and maybe some of you hold evolution I just don't know about, and I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm just saying, if you were to hear this, you'd be mad. Like, seriously, I understand. You'd be frustrated and be like, no, I don't believe that. And I understand that most evolutionary people do not believe that you should exploit others, like as a value, as a behavior. They don't actually believe that, most of them. Like, they don't. Like, if you were to go to like North Cross High School or whatever the case might be, it's a secular private school over there in Roanoke, or if you were to just go down the street or wherever, if you were to ask them about like biological evolution, Darwinian evolution, and then ask them, do you believe that? And then you ask them, do you believe that you should be able to exploit others? They'd be like, of course not. But we're looking at the progression of what you believe. And again, how do you hold to this bottom right corner thing? Or sorry, the top right corner. How do you hold to this and not end up with this? Like, how do you start with meaninglessness and then end up with basically acting out of the interest of others? Why would you do that? Because that goes against survival and personal fulfillment as a value. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing, because here's actually what really happens is that most people, this group here on the top left, the Christian worldview and the Darwinian evolutionary worldview, most Christians and most Darwinians and all the other groups there would ultimately probably believe that this is the right behavior to have, to love and serve others, right? Would you say so? I think so. But how do you get there? How do you get there? And that's a really, really important thing. And because if you start here in the top right, chance, meaningless universe, Darwinian evolution, millions of years, slow, gradual change over time, simple to complex, here we are. bon appetit. How do you go from that to you should love and serve other people? You should love your neighbor as yourself. How do you get there? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, legitimately, how do you get there? And most people would say that for your own, it actually is more healthy for you. It feels best for you to actually love and serve other people than it does to exploit them. Like, it's a healthier lifestyle. That's an is really, though. That's not an ought. That's an is. That's like like the synapses in your brain go a certain way, and therefore you should love your neighbor as yourself, because it makes you feel better. It does make you feel better to serve other people. It does. Like, generally speaking, it does. But that's not asking a question, why should you do that? Because the worldview here's what I'm thinking, is that the result of the Christian worldview is basically stolen from those that are evolutionists. You have to believe that loving your neighbor as yourself is the best ethic. But you get there through a different route, and they're not connected. And that's really, I think, a big problem of evolutionary worldview, because if you were to go back to the beginning, the root of it all, what happens if you're right? What happens if you're right about this whole chance and meaningless universe thing? Well, dire consequences, right? That would be very, very bad if you acted on those consequences. And here's the thing, though. Going back to the illustration before that we've seen, this is what we've been saying. You're basically stealing from the Christian worldview, and that's what we'll end with. But basically, the idea is, it's kind of like they're taking glasses when they're looking at, if you will, geology, like the formation of the Earth. They're looking at certain spectacles, right, through that lens there. If you were to take those same glasses and then look at human behavior and ethics, like what is right, what is wrong, if you kept those same glasses on, then you would probably come up with some pretty sketchy answers. You basically have to take those glasses off and say, let's put on a different set of glasses on what actually is most appropriate for modern society, which is that you should be kind to others, that you should treat, men and women with dignity and care and things like that. When it comes to the issue of race and racism, that you should look at everybody in an equal sense, that is just merely the color of their skin. That doesn't disbar anybody from an interesting, unique past as far as where they came from and all of that. But it's the idea that they're equal as a value, right? And so when you look at all those things, you have to put different pairs of glasses on. And I want to ask you this do you ever do that in your own life? Do you do this with your own behavior? Do you sometimes act like an atheist? I think the answer would be probably yes, like by the fact that we don't always trust God fully, that we sometimes don't be like at your school. If you really believe this, that person is kind of lesser liked. The kid over there who's you don't really get along with. Well, if you have those same glasses on from the Christian worldview, you would look at that person who's created in the image of God, who's worthy of dignity and respect, right? But most of the time, we like to take those glasses off and be like, ooh, this is how I fit in. I'm going to put those glasses on. You really shouldn't do that as a Christian. And yet we're prone to doing that. So I'm going to encourage you this week is to put on the right glasses and put them on every day and see how that affects your life. And I think it might be hard, but this is God's will for your life. So I wanted to leave you with that thought. And I think we are finished with that series. Hey, I have a question for you. There is another topic, another set of information that deals with apologetics, defending your faith. Would you like to continue in that study, or would you like to do something different?
Different. What?
Different.
Apologetic.
Wait, what would we do if it was different?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
What would we do
What
if
did you
it was
Pastor John?
yes. Most excellent Reverend Pastor Dr. John, who's not doctor yet. But I'm just joking. That's a joke on the recording. Okay. But anyways, we'll figure it out. We might do a mini series and then go into apologetics again. But we'll let you know. Anyways, thank you guys. We'll see you later.
What I did.